and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
My name's Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
3, 2, 1. Here we go, Josh. I had to. I had to because of last week. I had
All
to.
right.
Come on now. It was funny to me.
It was funny. Okay.
You should see his face, people.
All right. So,
You were like, really? Come on now.
so today we're going to talk about a movie that came out, I guess, a few weeks ago on, just for rental. And it's a movie that I saw the trailer for a while ago, and I was like, that sounds like an interesting idea for a movie. And it kind of reminded me of some other movies that I've seen in the past. So the movie we're talking about today is called Searching. Stars John Cho and Deborah Messing. And it's about a father whose 16-year-old daughter goes missing, and he has to kind of figure out what happened to her. But it turns out that he might not know his daughter as well as he thinks. It is all based, like the whole movie is set on computer screens. You never see you never have a camera show something that is not on a computer screen. So that's kind of the conceit of this movie. Now, I saw a movie a while ago by our good pal Nacho Vigalondo, and we've talked about Time Crimes before. I think we even did a podcast a long, long time ago on Time Crimes, which is an awesome movie. If you haven't seen it, go find it. It's great. I love it. And he did a movie called Open Windows that stars Elijah Wood and Sasha Grey. And she is like some sort of it's the same kind of a thing where he's like a super fan and she's like a webcam girl or something. And he is interacting. You only see things through the computer screen. Same kind of a thing, but it's more of like a thriller. And this one, I mean, it's not even thriller. It's more like a horror movie kind of a thing. And this one is a kind of a different, I don't know, it's a little bit more PG rated. I think it's PG-13 even. So I don't know, the whole conceit of the movie got me kind of excited, and seeing, especially now, how they're using Facebook and Google and Tumblr and, live streaming sites and all of these social network things. He's kind of like becoming his own detective to try to figure out what's going on with his daughter. So first-time director, his name's Anish Shaganti. He used to work for Google, and he co-wrote it with his buddy who's a producer. So were you as excited about this as me? Probably not, but I thought it was kind of a cool concept.
Not at all.
Oh, okay.
As a matter of fact, when you suggested it and I looked it up, I was like, oh, I don't know. The whole point of view idea, and this is taken to the nth degree with the computer generation and social networking, as you have already spoken about, it's a one-trick pony for me. And after a little while, it just bothers me. And it's just something that it starts to get on my nerves. And actually, the opposite happened. The use of modern day technology, the social networking and all the stuff, and how the director figures out how to keep that pattern going was very interesting to me. And about 10 minutes into it, I thought, okay, well, this is going to be my stopping point where this is going to get on my nerves, and I'm just going to have to call you and say we can't do a show on it because it's getting on my nerves. But actually, it was very interesting to me because I started to not only go, oh, yeah, that makes sense how he just did that, when he bypasses passwords and all that other stuff, and how I'm not sure if you can technically do all that stuff, but it seemed like that was for real because I've done those things for myself. I forgot my password. You have to go back in and get a code and all that other stuff. So when he does that, I was like, wow, is it that simple to get somebody else's password? That's crazy. But it all made sense. And the only time it started to really rub me the wrong way is closer to the end when he sets up the cameras in the brother's apartment or house or whatever it is at the time. That's a bit too much for me because, one, why didn't the brother notice it? And two, it just seems because you've been going along with this whole kind of motif that you had to continue it, and there would be no way to continue it unless he hid cameras. And so it was just a little bit on the nose for me. at that moment. But up to then, I thought it was quite brilliant in how that was executed. And I kept thinking to myself, how did they shoot this? Did they actually shoot all of that stuff through the computer or through FaceTime and all that other stuff? And then how did they put that all together? Did they, all of the, because he opens up many pages, and sometimes it's Facebook, and sometimes it's a chat room, and sometimes it's instant messaging, and sometimes it's email, and sometimes it's Google, and sometimes it's all at the same time.
Yeah.
And you see that on your screen, and it's amazing to me that we can do all of that stuff. And they make the point really solid when you see him at work, and he's talking to his boss and three other people, obviously through Skype or FaceTime or something like that. And you think, wow, not only is this technology used for socialization, but it's also used for business now, big time. And, John Cho, I think, is of the age of right before computers became the big thing. And so I don't think he was born with them, but which is good for his character, because the father has to figure things out, maybe not necessarily on a technical term, but he does have to ask people what's Tumblr, or what's the Tumblr is what he says. And so he does have to figure things out, and it does make a lot of sense, and he does pull it off. He's very good in this. So I actually thought that whole idea of the film was going to bother me when it didn't. But I was much more fascinated with how did they technically pull this off? How did they get this all on the screen? Did they actually have to do what he's doing to get this on the screen? Did they have to copy and paste things? Like, how did they do it? More so than I was following the narrative. And that's unlike me, because normally the emotional narrative is what allows me to pass through a movie. This was very technical, and I was trying to figure out, and I was also, which is doesn't bode well for the movie-going experience, but I was also going, oh, okay, yeah, I know how to use Snapchat. Oh, yeah, I know how to use Instagram. Oh, I know how to do that. Oh, I don't know how to do that. Oh, what did he just do there? Oh, you can do that at the same time. You can do that. And so that's not necessarily, I think, what the filmmakers wanted. I think they wanted you to follow along the storyline. And sometimes I would actually have to stop myself from what I was thinking and figure out, okay, why am I watching this? What are they trying to tell me about the young girl's experience or story? And how is this helping John Cho figure it out for his daughter? So overall, I was pleasantly surprised that I was into this movie as much as I thought I wasn't going to be. I thought I was going to stop and go with this film. I was going to stop, get on Facebook myself and stuff like that, which I hardly ever do when I'm watching a movie. But it's much easier to do when you're at home and your phone's right there and somebody texts you and you just pick it up. But I didn't. I followed this movie from beginning, middle, and end. So I was actually pleasantly surprised.
Oh, that's great. I thought that the first 10 minutes were kind of like comparable to the first 10 minutes of Up, or the first 5 minutes of Up, or whatever, where you get to, I mean, it's like kind of like a really sad thing. And that was the part that kind of like I was really amazed about, because they give themselves a limitation of all you can do is see what's on a computer screen. And they're able to evoke emotions by literally moving items on a calendar. And it's because I don't think that like my grandparents would really understand that, maybe, or I don't know if they would be able to like internalize that, because they're not really too computer savvy. My grandpa's fairly computer savvy. He gets on eBay every once in a while and dabbles, but you're able to do this all without dialogue, and just with kind of like clips of videos, and just, I mean, they're able to show the passage of time with pop-ups and notifications, first day of school, all of that. I mean, it's, emails, all that stuff. I mean, it's amazing how we have the ability now. Our society, it has a kind of a collective consciousness of computers, and we're able to show something, in a movie theater to a group of people, and they're able to inherently understand what that means, what those emails mean, what that text means. Somebody typing something into a chat text box and then deleting it, how that makes someone feel, and what they're going through while they're doing that. I mean, that's crazy. You don't have to see the person's face to realize what they're going through. And it's kind of amazing that we can do that in 2018. It's a little backwards from the history of human beings because we've kind of always been, people talking with each other, and only within the last, I guess 100 years have you been able to pick up a phone and actually talk to somebody without seeing them. But it's crazy. It's another way of doing of storytelling, and it's a kind of a cool detective procedural once he starts getting into it. Once his daughter does go missing. So yeah, I don't know. I also found myself like freeze framing, like pausing the movie, especially on things like when he gets into his wife's email to get the recovery password for his daughter's Facebook page. If you pause that, like you see all these different things. There's, you could tell that she was looking for jobs at one point because all these job websites pop up these different things, or have been emailing her these different things fairly recently, even though she passed away, 2 years before. And one of the things in there was like 20% off piano tuning and all that stuff because she taught her daughter piano. So all that stuff kind of tells you that, at least for me, from the very beginning, like it tells me that I'm in good hands from the filmmakers because they're not sloppy. They know that every frame of this movie they're creating, and by the way, they created it in a computer. They didn't actually do a screen capture. They recreated each of those web pages, and all the like mouse motion and all that stuff. That's all animation. That's all, nonlinear editing animation. So like much like you would animate a movie, even, they were using similar programs to animate what the computer screen looks like and then where the focus of the camera is on that computer screen, and they can move the virtual camera around independent of where the mouse is moving and whether it's clicking and all that stuff. I did watch a behind the scenes type thing on that. They used cameras. In fact, they used GoPro cameras. They used the director's iPhone to record, like, when he calls his daughter, FaceTimes his daughter, and she's at the study group. She was using the director's iPhone they had a special microphone attached, and they had special lighting, like kind of like these diffused lights to light up her face a lot more than a regular, her being in the hallway, there wasn't a lot of light, but they used light from external lights that were attached to the phone. So if she moved the phone around, the light would be natural, all that stuff. So they definitely augmented these pieces of technology with cameras on them, whether it's a GoPro, or whether it's a phone or whatever, a laptop camera, but they still used those as opposed to using, high dollar cameras with whatever $50,000 lenses. They didn't go that route. They went the kind of like more guerrilla filmmaking route and just made it work. And I think it pays off because they would have had to down res those images later on to make them look more naturalistic, to make them look like they were from a webcam, something like that. So yeah, technically they put in a lot of work, but you're also not shooting, on location for very many things. They only had a handful of locations they had to shoot at, so I'm sure they were able to save a lot of money that way. But so yeah, I was kind of amazed at the ingenuity that they had to show to just get the movie made. And so that alone was cool. And then once they started getting into, they do a good job with kind of seeding certain things, whether it's plot points or whether it's things in the background on screen. They bring up a lot of like, it's one of those movies where you watch it the second time, you can kind of see where things show up earlier, and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't even notice that the first time. And they also kind of spoon feed the audience at close to the end, which is kind of like, I don't know, you're trying to explain things to the lowest common denominator, but you don't want to assume that your audience is stupid either. So I don't know, they walked that line, but I kind of felt like there was a little bit of there were certain things that were reveals for me that weren't actually reveals for the character until later on, when the character's like, wait a second, John Cho's like, hold on a second, I think that I've seen this thing before. But, whereas initially I'm like, whoa, man, that's a big deal. So this movie has, definitely some like twists and turns in it. So it's on Redbox right now. I don't think it's streaming anywhere. on like Netflix or anything just yet. But still, I mean, it's I don't know. I enjoyed it, and I thought it was a good. I mean, it's a real. I mean, we talked about Roma last time, and it's not the opposite movie from Roma because you still have to think in this movie, and there's still emotions and things like that. But it's very kind of like easily digestible, I think, and it was fun. At least for me, I thought it was fun. I'd say let's get into spoilers because I did want to talk about the end a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. I do want to say something about when you said about your grandparents, whether or not your grandparents would ingest something. A calendar, even though it's on the computer, still looks like a calendar.
Oh,
You
that's
know, it still has. You
You're
just
right.
get to digitally put in the notes, and you don't get to smudge the lines because my father has an old school calendar hanging up and we write his appointments on it. And when we're writing his appointments, if we're writing something before it and we smudge it, then we don't know what we just wrote. So we're like, what is going on? Okay, no more Sharpies. We can't use Sharpies on the calendar. And so we're having to use pens because it'll smudge. So anyway, the point to that is a calendar is a calendar is a calendar. And this is like anything. If you say to yourself you can't see something because the technology is not part of your generation or you won't understand it, then you can't watch 2001 A Space Odyssey because it's about spacecrafts in space. We can't relate to that. I've never been in space. I've never been on a spacecraft. I don't know what it is. So if you're going to say you can't see something, not you, just anybody, you can't see something because the technology won't allow you to understand what's going on. It doesn't take much to figure this stuff out. FaceTime. It's pretty easy to figure out what FaceTime is because you pick up the phone, you see the other person's face, it's happening right at that time. It's pretty easy to figure out. I don't think it's anything that an audience member who doesn't know about Skype, who doesn't know about FaceTime, who doesn't know about Google, anybody who doesn't know about that, if they can't see this film, that has something to do with them and what their taste is, not that the filmmakers don't make this accessible. Because I come from the before the computer generation time, and I know all of this stuff, some of it just by the terms. I've never been on Tumblr. We're not on Instagram. We are on Twitter and we are on Facebook. So I know some of this stuff, but it did not make sense to me. I mean, when you see him typing in something to say, and then you realize that's what he really wants to say, but then he realizes how that's going to come across to the next person, so he deletes it. It's no different than somebody sitting at a desk with a quill writing something and then scrapping it and throwing it over their head. Doesn't happen.
Rachel Weisz just did that in The Favorite.
Right, exactly. It's the same exact thing. It's just you're deleting it a lot easier, and it's deleted for good. So the idea that a technologically challenging film is the reason why you can't watch something, it doesn't make any sense to me. You got to give yourself over to the world or the genre that you're watching. It's like watching Westworld and not understanding that cowboys rode horses. Well, that's not a car, it's a horse. That's what they rode back then. So it's a non-discussion for me. It's how the filmmakers utilized this technology that I thought was going to get on my nerves eventually or just wear me down. But it didn't. It actually was a really good storytelling device. And so I was impressed by it. I was impressed by how some of the story at the end, like you were talking about, sort of starts to fall apart for me. It's almost like too much of a reveal and too much of a thing. And I kind of saw it coming. And we can get into that now. But so at the end of the film, I was a little let down because I was like, okay, yeah, that's it. Yeah, I kind of knew something was going on with her. I kind of knew something was going on with him. I kind of figured it out. It just was not as interesting. The big reveals at the end of this film were just not as interesting as how he puts it all together in the beginning of the film. So the first third of the film is very interesting, and it keeps you engaged emotionally because you're right. You see the picture of her going to her first day of high school and her mother's not in it. And you're thinking, wow, that's one way to tell that. You don't have to say the mother's dead. She's not in that picture. You can assume that something tragic has happened, whether or not she walked out. I mean, we find out via all the other things that she has had cancer and it went into remission. And you're right. That opening sequence is really well done. And it takes a lot of smarts and a lot of intellect to put all that stuff together and make it make sense. Can you imagine having this idea and then trying to utilize all those things and try to tell the story? You get lost in it when you're telling your own story. You know, the director's telling a story he's already familiar with. You can get lost in it, but he never does. He tells it very clearly. So that's a long way to get back to what you were talking about at the end of the film. But I thought that was unique. This is the time frame we're in. How do you utilize that to tell an interesting story? And I think they do it up to the last 15 minutes.
Yeah. So spoilers from now on for Searching. I feel like they had their gimmick of the mother covering over what her son did, and you know, that's a kind of a cool reveal. But I could kind of like smell some weirdness when he's calling her as he's driving to the lake. And she kind of like freaks out and says like, "Wait, where are you?" And she's like running to try to go to him. Like that seemed not like something a detective would do. It seemed like a detective would just kind of be like, okay, we'll send somebody out there to you. And then she hears the sirens in the background on his side of the conversation. She's like, wait, did you call the cops? You know, I mean, that was really weird. And you just kind of like, you know, internalize that, I guess. But, you know, other than that, they did a pretty good job. I kind of forgot about that a little bit. But then, you know, by the end, it just seemed like they really focused more heavily on the news footage. And that is inherently not cinematic. Like it's not. It's a very shortcut way of telling a story. By literally having someone on screen as a newscaster telling you what's happening. And it was just rough to not be able, I mean, the best part of that is that you get to see his character kind of react to certain things, but it's I don't know. It just seemed like it started to, you know, they had a great idea and it started to fall apart closer to the end because they needed to get to a certain point and they didn't really have to me, it didn't seem like they had a great way of getting there with the constraints that they've given on themselves.
Yeah, it's too many of those news shots at the end. It's too many. It's like it should have been one or two. Them at the mountain range or whatever, the cliff, and then her coming up. That's it. Because news is boring. And so instinctually, you go back to when you were 5 years old and you wanted to watch the Disney Channel and your parents were watching the news and you're like, oh my gosh, you watch the news in the morning, you watch the news at 7, you watch the news at 10. I'm sick of the news. And it's the same story, just cut down differently each time. So what they should have done is they should have minimized
I take offense to that. My TV station doesn't do that because we are the best. So we give you new content all the time. Every time. It's dynamic. It's amazing. I mean, you should definitely watch it. WRAL.
And when you have children and Uncle Paulie is over entertaining your children because you're watching the news because you and Steph want to see something and they're complaining about how it's been on 3 times, Uncle Paulie, and I can say, hey, you want to hear something kind of cool? Listen to your dad back in the day say how cool his TV channel is, and I'll play him this. And they'll still be like, dude, my dad, what's up with him? I'll be like, I don't know, dude. There's 250 episodes or... Yeah. Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I'd be like, you know, because I still want them to, you know, like me the best because I'm their favorite uncle. But, you know, I can't diss on you to do that. They still love you. But anyway, the point to that is that it wears very thin because it's not as unique as what you're seeing on the computer screen. It's not as unique as what you're seeing on Facebook. It's not as multi-leveled as you're seeing throughout the film. It's very, very static. And I do want to say that I did pick up on something with Deborah Messing in the very beginning when she first calls him as I'm the detective and the 3 things that we know are this, and this. It just struck me odd. I thought this is a strange conversation. Either she's not pulling it off or it's just there's something here that I'm supposed to be paying attention to. I thought it was just that she was miscast, and I kind of still think that. And I do love her. I just kept thinking of Rosamund Pike and somebody like that in this role, or even the sister of Ben Affleck in Gone Girl.
Carrie Coon.
Yes. That's right. That's Carrie Coon. I forgot. The Leftovers. Anyway, love her. Yeah, she would have been perfect And I think that Deborah Messing does her job. There's something about the quality of what she was doing. The speech pattern was just so, I am a detective and I must speak like this because this is how a detective sounds. And then now, after I've seen the ending, I think that's purposeful, so you can plant that seed in the audience's mind that something's askewed here, but you're not supposed to know that at that point. So I am less attracted to that character because of Deborah Messing's performance. It needed to be much more multi-layered than it comes across. And it might be written that way. It might be that she's underwritten. I don't know. I'm not a good, I'm not, I never have a good take on those kind of things, but I don't know where that leads us back to, but you're right. That television footage it wears thin very quickly.
Yeah. And I think that the most dynamic things we're watching him, on the computer, kind of either discovering, what Tumblr is or a live streaming service is. And I think they're doing that for a couple reasons, because some people might not have ever been on like a Periscope type thing, or, I mean, they purposefully, I guess, didn't call it something that's real, but, they've, people have obviously been on YouTube and stuff like that, but there's kind of like more of like the fringes, or like Tumblr. Maybe they've not been on a blog site like that, or haven't heard of something like that. But most people have heard of Instagram, Facebook, those types of things. And the fact that he's able to access all of these people, he's able to kind of like get the Rosetta Stone to her life by going on Facebook. That's kind of crazy that people now have the ability to learn a lot about you by your digital footprint. And I think that's one of the things about this movie that's kind of saying that, like, we are now changed in some ways with how we interact with society, because your digital life is a part of your real life, and they are always connected now. And it's very difficult to disconnect those or to make those things go away. And that's the privacy rights laws in Europe. The GDPR laws in Europe are attempting to do something similar to that, where in Europe, Europeans, I guess people living in the European Union, can request to Google that they delete all of these things, whether it's particular entries that show up in Google when you search someone's name, things like that. Those are now that's now a law that's causing Google to have to go through these kind of like these steps to get rid of certain things that are on the internet, or at least to make sure that they're not showing up on the most popular search site. So obviously the guy who made this used to work at Google and doesn't anymore. So, and this is the thing that he decided to do. So he's obviously got opinions on that too. I don't feel like his opinions are definitely don't ever do anything online, but I do think his opinions are kind of like saying, our interactions with other people may not be what you think they are. Like her relationship with the fish and chips person on the live streaming site was a totally different person than they she essentially got catfished. So, and she ended up sending him $2,500. So it was fairly innocuous because he wasn't trying to steal $2,500 from her, but it obviously went bad when he decided to confront her in some weird, awkward way that she freaked out about, and that's what caused all this stuff. So, I mean, yeah, maybe people might not understand that, even though there's been shows and movies and all kinds of stuff about the catfishing and people not being who they say they are. But maybe there's people out there who see this movie and they're able to understand that a little bit better, I guess, too. So maybe it's a somewhat of a teaching tool too. But I don't know. I thought it was kind of a neat. I do think it was better than Open Windows, the Nacho Vigalondo movie. It is a lot more coherent than that movie, and it's definitely not as messy. It's a lot more purposeful, and it's a lot cleaner. And it just, I mean, as far as like the aesthetic of the movie, it's very well made from a technical level, and I can't really find any fault with it on the technical side. And even when you kind of look back in the deeper recesses of some of those screens, they're all very accurate. There's nothing that's really out of place, which had to take a long time to do and a lot of dedication. But I mean, I think they nailed that part of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I also think that it begs the question of which came first, the person who made the mistake or the person who posted the mistake. So I'll get back to that in just a second. The YouTube video that you see the dad threatening the young boy and apparently breaking his jaw and that kind of stuff. Now, it seems very staged because obviously it was, and I don't think that you can rise above that when you have to make a point. And I think the point is that not only you are being filmed probably 95% of the time that you're outside your house. And if you get those new camera doorbells like I just did, you're filming yourself as you're putting up your Christmas decorations. So everything is being filmed. My neighbor has a camera across the street. Some guy was accused of murdering his wife and 3 children. And he's like, no, it wasn't me. You can't prove it, blah, 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 blah. Well, they have a doorbell camera from their neighbors, his neighbor, that you see his truck come into the driveway, and then you actually see him bringing the bodies out on the doorbell camera. So that said, that's just the reality that we live in, that, you know, that in the long run was a good thing because he got caught because of it. But 95% of what we do outside of our house and inside of our house is being filmed. That said, it seemed like just a bit of a setup with the YouTube video. It's just a bit much and a little too staged for me, and the extras running away, it's just very staged, and it didn't feel genuine or organic on any level. But that said, the message that I think that the filmmaker is saying, at least what I took from it, was not only do you have to contend with what your family thinks about you and the idiosyncrasies that you have with your family members and the gossipy things that you have with your family members and he said, she said stuff that you have with your family members. Now you have the whole world giving their opinion about who they think you are. And so, you know, they do a very good job, filmmakers do a very good job at showing you father plus murder or father plus missing daughter equals murderer. You see a lot of different comments where people are initially jumping the gun and saying it's the father, it's the girl ran away, oh, prostitution, oh, drugs, all this other stuff. And so that's never changed in our society. Everybody is looking out their window at their neighbors, and they're judging their neighbors, and they're giving their opinions to their family members and to their neighbors' family members, and everybody gossips and everybody talks behind people's backs. And the one thing that you have control over is what comes out of your own mouth. So you don't talk behind somebody's back, then you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to be involved in that gossip. Hard to do sometimes, because sometimes when you're dealing with people that you work with in particular, you have to vent, and venting becomes gossip, and gossip becomes a thread, and it keeps going and going. That's not changed. The only difference is now that people have a venue and a place to do that where they don't necessarily have to be held accountable for what they say. But then again, back in the day before computers, people gossiped behind people's backs and was like, I didn't say that. So they denied it then too. So you just have to, personal responsibility is the issue here. What do you do online that can affect other people, and what you do online can have an effect on your life in the future? So if you're not doing anything, and of course I know I'm on my soapbox, and I know that this is one of those statements where, you know, more likely than not, but if you don't have something ridiculous coming out of your mouth, if you don't do something ridiculous and post it, then when they Google your name, it won't come up. So the difference between me, and I did look up John Cho's age, and he is of an age where he came of age before computers. But the difference between me and his daughter's generation is that they've known nothing but computers and this technology and these sites. They don't know anything but that. So they've never had to be aware that they're being filmed. They've never had to be aware that their opinion is going to come back. They've never been aware of that. And so it must be hard for them to use good judgment and not do things that when they Google your name, it comes up. It must be really hard for this generation because they don't know the difference. It's like trying to explain to my 8-year-old nephew, where's the color in this movie? I think we were watching It's a Wonderful Life. When does the color come in? It's a black and white film. Huh? Movies didn't have color back in the day. Well, how do you figure out what color the car is, or what color the bike is, or what color the And you don't. The black and white tells you what's what by the shadowing. Well, that's just silly. He cannot conceptualize a movie without color. But he's the Disney generation. He's the Pixar generation. He is the YouTube generation. All he knows is color. And until he becomes a little bit older and sophisticated enough to know that that is an actual art form in making a movie that's in black and white, he's never going to be able to get it. So I don't think kids, young people who are this daughter's age, are ever going to be able to conceptualize what not to do or to do online, because that's all they've ever known. And I do think it's very clever that the catfish scheme, the person's name is Fish and Chips.
Yeah.
I just put that together, by the way.
I didn't put it together. So yeah, there you go. Catfish.
Yeah. It's very clever. It's very clever. So yeah, it brings up a lot of questions. It brings up a lot of things. You know, I don't understand the whole trolling thing. Yes, I understand the concept, but I just don't understand, if you don't like something, why are you going to spend your time telling people you don't like it on a site where people like it? It just doesn't make any sense to me. It seems like a waste of energy for me. I don't purposely go out to find things that I like and comment on them, because I hardly ever do that. But I certainly don't comment on things that I don't like. I don't go to somebody's website for some band and comment how much they suck because they suck. Why would I go there? Like it conceptually speaking. But this generation now, that's all they know. So their opinion online is ingrained in their psyche of who they are. So that's complex. But with films like this, maybe they'll be able to distinguish the difference. With shows like Catfish and with MTV doing shows like that, that generation has to understand there are consequences to what you do online. The idea of giving anybody $2,500 that I don't know I'm getting it back, and I don't know that person, and I don't physically know that person, there's no way, because $2,500 is a lot of money to me. So it says something about this generation, that she's so ingrained in doing these things online that she's become friends with this person, this Fish and Chips person, and she believes this person. Mm-hmm. And you just have to be careful, because it's not what you're seeming it to be. But it's like anybody calls you up and, hey, are you the homeowner? By the way, I've got this great blah, blah, blah. I immediately turn it off. You know, I've done telemarketing. I know the vocal quality of somebody who's trying to sell you something. But, you know, somebody who's my father's generation, he doesn't understand that somebody calling him on the phone is not legitimately being valid in what they're saying. He just thinks, oh, yeah, okay, sure. Okay, well, send me the package and then I'll send you the check. And I'm like, oh, don't do that. You don't know that person. You know, well, they called on my phone. They have my number. That means nothing. So it's an interesting thing. And I think the filmmakers do a really great job. And how do you say this guy's name? Anish
Chagandhi.
Anish Chagandhi?
Yeah.
That's a great name. I think he does a really great job at peppering in those social commentaries without hitting you over the head with it. That's why I think the end falls apart for me.
Yeah.
Did you need it to be this complex? Did it need to be a character you weren't expecting it to be? Did you need a twist? Did you need a red herring that turned into a twist? Do you need a big M. Night Shyamalan reveal? I don't know. I think he made his point. I think if she had just gone missing and they never found her, it would have had been as impactful of a movie as if they did find it. Now, it's great at the end of the film when she's in the wheelchair in the picture that she doesn't like, and she's back at school. I think that's clever because it ties in with the motif of the pictures of the first day at school and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not necessary for me, this whole plot twist. And honestly and truthfully, I love Deborah Messing. Everything I've ever seen her in, I've loved her in. I don't want to bash on her because I don't think it's her fault. I just think she's miscast. I'm thinking maybe with somebody else in that role, it might have felt differently. Connie Britton, do you know who she is?
Oh, yeah.
By name?
Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, right. Somebody like that. Sarah Paulson. Sandra Bullock. Somebody, I don't know. There's just this gravitas to those people that Deborah Messing just doesn't seem to have, and she wasn't able through the character to pull it out. And I think that's a combination of being miscast and the writing. I think she's written in a way that she's supposed to be so secretive. You know what her best scene is? Is the scene in the chapel, which is a little forced upon the video
I
watching
didn't
of
like that scene.
Yeah, you know what though, the way she handles it is it's very good. The way she stands up, the way she fixes her coat, and the ways that she turns, knowing that she's caught, it's telling. It's an interesting, that right there to me was more character development than anything else that they gave her to do, and so. Something about the last 15 minutes of this movie is just like, I felt myself going to my phone.
Yeah, that was one of the ones where it's like, why is he pulling up I guess he pulled up the live stream to see if she was going to be there or not. That was the reason why. And then he just left it up as he left. So I don't know.
Well, it's also the live stream of his daughter's memorial. I can understand why he pulled it up. I think he left it up because I think you're supposed to believe he left it up because he figures she's there now, so he has to go and do what he has to do. So he just absent-mindedly left it open.
But the whole thing of it being a live stream in the first place, I don't know if his character would have agreed to that, because I don't know if he really cares about like all the people online like wanting to be a part of this, like a memorial service for his daughter who they don't even know his daughter. You know what I mean? Like,
no, but that's covered because when he gets that email originally about the memorial site and all you have to do is blah, blah, blah. And he said, she's not dead. They took care of all that stuff. So he probably didn't say any. Once he sent the pictures and once he agreed to this, whatever this company does, he probably agreed to live streaming and didn't even realize it. Plus, it's a news story too. So it's probably one of those things where church is live streamed now.
Sure.
Concerts are live streamed now. So you can't, you're paraplegic and you can't get out of bed. You watch your church on the computer. So, sorry, that was computer and a burp at the same time. Sorry, excuse me. That was really interesting. So the utilization of it is not, the reason why it exists doesn't pose a question for me. Him leaving it up doesn't pose a question for me. It's when I think it has to do with the length of time that's the shot that doesn't work for me. Just like in the Brothers House, the lengths of shots from each of those camera are a lot different than what we've seen up to this point. Everything else has been done on the computer. And it's very clever that they put the marijuana in that opening sequence with the brother cooking food. And you're thinking, oh, he's just judging his brother because he's a marijuana smoker. But you're like, it's 2018. Get over it. It's going to be legal. Like, stop judging people. But it's actually a plot point that comes up a little bit later on. So I thought that was clever. And you're right. They do pepper those things in throughout. It has to do with the length of time these screenshots are going for, or not screenshots, but the shot is going for. You get used to a certain pace in a movie, and the pace is very, click, 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 and he's discovering a whole bunch of different things. Even when he's just FaceTiming, there's other things on the screen that's happening, and unless it's that one scene that you're talking about is when Deborah Messing is like, did you call the police? All that other stuff. It's still very, it has a lot of movement to it. So these last shots at the end of the film, I think, are just static, and it doesn't bode well because by that point you're kind of over it.
You're kind of ready,
like,
for it to be done. Did
she live? Did she die? I'm done.
Yeah.
It could have been an hour and 15 minutes, and it would have been a much more interesting film. But I think it's worth checking out.
I do think
it's worth checking out. I don't want to leave it on a negative. I think it's worth checking out. It's definitely an ode to our time, and I think the filmmaker did something unique. He took what we are living through and put a universal theme behind it, a father's love and family love and all that other stuff, and he did it very well.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that when you give yourself a constraint like this as a filmmaker, this is a movie that's much easier to crash and burn with than whatever, a period piece or a genre movie, a horror movie, something like that. So he kind of like set the bar pretty high, and I think that he did a good job of reaching that. So it would be interesting to see what this kind of like a director, writer, producer pair here, Anish Chaganty and Sev Ohanian, do next. That will be interesting to see. It's definitely not, I don't think it's going to be anything like this, but it may be something in the technology realm, but I don't think they're going to do, I don't think Searching 2 is like on the horizon, because that would just be, I think, a bad idea for them, because I think they're better filmmakers than that. So yeah, it's I mean, if you've made it this far in the podcast and you haven't seen it, then we just ruined it all for you, but you should still go see it, I think, or rent it. So, all right. So you can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. Go to facebook.com/actorandengineer, and you can tweet us at actorengineer. We'll see you next time.